Eric, what have you done?
Hey guys, I'm Romijn-Stamos.
And I'm Cameron Simpson.
And welcome back to my channel. And as I promised, since I'm continuing on with the X-Men series, we have now reached X2, X-Men United, which I honestly think is a lot better than the first film in so many ways. I mean, sure, it has like the same characters that we all know and love from the first film. It improves on the action. There's a whole lot in this film that I guarantee a lot of X-Men fans will love, because watching this for the first time back in 2003 when I was like 5 years old, I mean, I didn't see this in theaters. I watched it on DVD when my dad bought it, like years ago. So watching it for the first time, I was like, this is definitely better than the first. I've always had that opinion ever since I was a kid, and still, my opinion has not changed. There's just a whole lot that I love about it. I mean, sure, there's a few aspects about the film that are dated, but still, it's a movie that you can just sit back, enjoy yourself, because it's just like one of those early like Marvel movies that can like really do that for you.
Well, I don't have as much passion for the X-Men films as I do Spider-Man, because he was the one that started it all for me. I very much enjoyed the second X-Men film, because to me it just really seemed to make a lot more sense, really answered a lot more questions. The action was better and just really got me like motivated to see where they were going next. I didn't exactly see this film in theaters when it came out. Most of the time I think I just like checked it out on DVD like in my later years, but I still very much enjoy the franchise. One of the ways that X-Men 2 improves on the action sequences for, I'm sure, a lot of people is that from the very beginning we get like this scene at the White House where Nightcrawler shows up and starts using his teleportation powers to basically like teleport all around the place and attack the president, going from left, right, center, all over the place, and we can't really know where he is, where he's gonna be, and if he's even still there. It's just epic.
Yeah, that's a good way to open a comic book movie, just having a character just kick ass left, right, and center while Mozart is playing. Yeah. There's one thing I also like about the film is the soundtrack, and that's another improvement over the first film, and we get a good X-Men theme, because sure, Michael Kamen's work in the first film was good, but I think I love John Ottman's work in the sequel a whole lot better, and I really love his X-Men theme, and it's a really memorable X-Men theme. I would say it's like number 2. The biggest number 1 for me, obviously, being the theme from the 90s cartoon. While I do like Ian McKellen as Magneto in the first film as the first film's main villain, the sequel's villain, however, William Stryker, played by Brian Cox, I think I like a little bit better compared to, I mean, no disrespect to Ian McKellen, I mean, I love the shit out of that guy. But when it comes to Stryker, he is a despicable son of a bitch for sure.
Now, one thing that they definitely like make clear with Stryker is just how much he genuinely hates mutants. He calls them a plague on the world and a virus.
He's somewhat a little bit different compared to his comic book counterpart, because in the comics, I mean, he's a religious fanatic who considers mutants as like the spawns of Satan, and he's trying to rid the world of mutants as like his twisted way of thinking that he's performing a great service for God. But in this film, he's not a religious fanatic. He's just a military scientist who's like building his own bootleg version of Cerebro, and he wants to manipulate Charles into using it, so he would like have Charles like locate every mutant on Earth and kill them with his psychic powers. And the fact that he uses his own flesh and blood as a weapon, his own son, who is a mutant, just like, oh my god. And they give a good motivation for why he would, because of it, how far his hatred for mutants goes, because with his son being unable to control his powers and him going so far as to use it against his own parents. Stryker's wife ended up committing suicide by taking a power drill into her own brain. I'm just like, yeah. I mean, I can understand Stryker's motivations, and like I said, because of what he's doing throughout like most of the film, makes him a despicable son of a bitch. We do get a few scenes here and there where Mystique is still impersonating Senator Kelly. And there's this one odd moment in particular it's between this exchange of dialogue between Bruce Davison and Brian Cox, who played Senator Kelly and Stryker.
I was piloting Black Ops missions in the jungles of North Vietnam where you were sucking on your mama's tit at Woodstock, Kelly.
Brian Cox and Bruce Davison are the same age. I like this one scene where Storm and Jean are looking for Nightcrawler, and they find out that he's not actually as a terrible person as the media has made him to be. I mean, given that he was brainwashed into an assassination attempt on the president. I mean, I like Alan Cumming's performance as Nightcrawler in this film because, I mean, yeah, despite the fact that he's like a badass, I mean, given that opening that we've seen in the beginning of the movie, I mean, he's a devout Catholic who's strong in his faith, which is kind of ironic given his demonic appearance.
To me, you know, like, it's just very interesting that we get to see this, like, really good side to Nightcrawler, have a really good person on the inside. But at the same time, to me, it also further shows that this stereotype the world has in the X-Men franchise to just that all mutants are like bad or dangerous. This really kind of helps, I think, to make the world kind of see otherwise.
Yeah, because I mean, given how much humanity like fears mutants. And I love this one moment in particular, like later in the film, when Nightcrawler explained, like, outside of the circus that, I mean, where he performed, that most people were afraid of him, but he didn't hate them, but he pitied them, because people would never know beyond what they see with their own two eyes. Yeah. And he does have a really good point.
I think it's definitely a point that I think just about anyone could agree with.
When it comes to the scene where Stryker and his men attack Xavier's skull, when Wolverine becomes the badass that we all know and love, especially in this one moment, I have two words for you viewers: Berserker Rage.
And he mows them down indeed. Really. I honestly just really like that part of the movie. Not because, you know, Logan's just going around basically slaughtering people, but because, you know, they really, in my opinion, just amped up the action sequences in this. And not only do we get to see Logan pretty much just going around slicing and dicing people, but at the same time we get some good demonstrations of some of the other mutants' powers, like
Colossus.
Yes, Colossus. Some kid whose sonic scream like really just leveled the place and broke a lot of glass. Or I think Iceman got a few moments in, and it's just like quite, I think, the variety of certain powers here and there in one place.
Yeah, I mean, we see that throughout the film when it comes to certain mutants, but for the most part, it was really badass to just see Wolverine just digging his claws into bad guys. And after this sequence ends, I mean, when Stryker appears, I mean, we get this hint that he has ties to Logan's past.
We finally start to get some answers about Logan's past or any possible connection.
Because in the first film, we only got like glimpses of his past, but he's like slowly like starting to remember here and there because, I mean, what he'd gone through at the facility and how he becomes Weapon X and everything like that, and him escaping and everything. So they just show that in like brief flashbacks, really.
One of the most creative scenes I can think of that comes next in this film is Magneto's escape from his plastic prison. It's just unbelievably creative. Mystique finds a way to basically seduce this guard and then inject him with some iron literally into his bloodstream. And when the guard visits Magneto for his, I guess, lunch or breakfast or whatever, Magneto notices the iron in his bloodstream and then starts using it as a weapon to literally just fire his way out, I guess.
Yeah,
all over the place, and just level the place, and then turn part of it into a hover, like a little hover flat iron surface, and basically just escape with the other parts of the iron just circling him like a couple of marbles used as weapons. It's just very creative.
Well, they don't call him the master of magnetism for nothing.
Another very interesting part to this movie, and rather, I think, quite unexpected in a lot of people's eyes, is that basically the X-Men have to forge an alliance with the Brotherhood because they have a common enemy, and as the saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
And yeah, that does make sense given Stryker's goal to wipe out all mutants. And there's this really odd moment in particular, and it's between Wolverine and Mystique, where Mystique shapeshifts into Jean, and Wolverine doesn't notice it yet until, he notices the scar that he gave her the last time they fought in the first movie, and I'm like, well, this came right the fuck out of nowhere, and I'm like, you all fought in the first movie. Now all of a sudden, you just want to get some with him, and I'm just like, I never really understood that then. And I still don't understand it to this day.
Well, I'm not exactly the expert on the subject, as I've covered before, but I suppose that the best way that I can think of to explain it is Mystique is a shapeshifter. She likes playing with people's emotions to get whatever she wants or to get by in life. And basically, in her case, with Logan, I guess, the thing is, because they kind of fought before and they're pretty much enemies, she likes to toy with his mind because she knows that he has feelings for Jean, so I guess for her that was a way of, getting back at him, I guess, for stabbing her before or something.
Maybe, I don't know. And as I mentioned before about the first movie, about this franchise having a thing for kick-ass blue people, I always love the moment where Mystique, disguised as Wolverine, manages to, infiltrate Stryker's base, kick a few soldiers' asses, and then, gets away, giving them the finger. I'm just like, okay, girl, you're on it. One of the better action sequences in this film, and what was at one point my favorite X-Men fight scene, is of course the fight between Wolverine and Deathstrike. And before this even starts, there's a moment where Wolverine has the funniest swear in most of the X-Men franchise.
Holy shit.
What I find most interesting about this fight to me is the fact that not only are Wolverine and Deathstrike pretty much evenly matched because they have the same powers, but the fact is I actually have some knowledge of her comic book counterpart, and what's most interesting to me is that in the comics and in most cartoons, as I'm sure most people know, she has somewhat similar abilities to Logan. Usually she's like a cyborg mutant that has similar abilities to Logan, but she was never really an exact duplicate. Here she pretty much has more or less the exact same abilities as Logan, and it pretty much gives him, I think, the first actual fully even fight that he can actually remember against someone with his exact same abilities. And to me, that is just unbelievable, because we don't even know if any of them if people like Logan can even be killed.
Yeah. And I like how this fight turns out. And there's even a pretty creative death scene when Wolverine injects Deathstrike full of adamantium, and I'm just like, that's pretty creative. So Stryker's plan is now in effect, with Xavier using Stryker's version of Cerebro to locate all the mutants in the world and try to kill them with his psychic powers. But when Magneto manages to break into Cerebro and kind of does a little tinkering with it, that's when he does his heel turn moment and tries to trick Xavier into killing all the humans in the world, because when it comes to any sort of story or whatever, when it involves the good guys teaming up with the bad guys to take out the greater threat, it's only a matter of time, and it's completely predictable, and it's only a matter of time before the bad guys turn against the good guys, because most of the time the bad guys are kind of dicks. But of course, Storm stops Xavier from killing humanity, and they try to get out of there in time before the dam ruptures, because this was caused by a brief fight between Jean and Cyclops. And speaking of Cyclops, I mean, even though he's the leader of the X-Men, I didn't point this out in my in my review for the first movie. The way they handled Cyclops in the original trilogy always frustrated me, because, he's a likable character in the comics and the cartoons, etc., but he's mostly wasted in the original trilogy.
Well, I honestly don't really know what I could say in that front, but the most that I can say is, when it comes to his potential in the original trilogy, I guess it's simply just a matter of opinion. People have types of characters they like, types of characters they don't like, certain heroes they like, and vice versa. But all in all, even though Scott ended up pretty much just being part of the love triangle basically between Logan and Jean, I personally think that he had a important role to play.
Also, when it comes to the love triangle between Wolverine and Jean and Cyclops, sure, it's also happened in the comics, but it's also one thing that I've never really understood. Jean's clearly in love with Cyclops, but there's a moment here and there where she would get flirty with Wolverine, and it's obvious that Wolverine clearly has a thing for Jean, but I'm just you gotta go for one or the other, Jean, so yeah.
My best guess is that, it's like Jean said in the movie, girls flirt with the bad boy in the mix, they go home with him, but they marry the good guy, and Logan says, I could be the good guy.
Yeah.
And it just, a lot of times that always made me laugh.
And when it comes to, the moment where Jean, sacrifices herself to save the X-Men and the mutant children, that's one thing that I'm pretty sure will confuse, a lot of people, given there's, a lot of different ways that this could have played out. So she exits out of the jet and, steps outside so she can lift the jet on one hand and stop in the water with the other hand, and she basically dies. And I get that this is supposed to create a powerful emotional moment for both the characters and the audience, but yeah, I get that. But I can see many different ways that this could have played out. Storm could have stopped the water. Nightcrawler could have teleported in there to save Jean. But I don't know. I do not know. But for what they were going with for the story, it's acceptable. So for that moment, I can give it a pass. Xavier and the X-Men, they visit the White House with Xavier, freezing, everybody so they can have so he can have a conversation with the president before he can, push for harsher laws on mutants. Telling them that not all mutants are threatening, and is hoping for a better future where humans and mutants can coexist in peace. Because despite everything that has happened throughout the film, he's still pushing for that future.
Before they leave, Charles gives one final line that I really think kind of shows their role to play in all this, and they tell them that they have reason to believe that a war is coming, and that earlier that very same day humanity tried to start one with the mutants already, but at the same time there's still hope that they can change that. And then he tells the president, "We're here to stay, Mr. President. The next move is yours." And Logan says, "We'll be watching," and then they just vanish.
And how the film ends with this shot of the water, and we see Phoenix, that was clearly meant to suggest that Jean is still alive and will eventually become Phoenix, which will come into play in the third movie, which we'll get on pretty soon. But overall, when it comes to X2, I mean, it's definitely a great sequel. I mean, it improves on the action, and it improves on its characters, it improves on its story, and there's just a whole lot that will impress a lot of comic book fans. I have a few nitpicks with the film here and there, but still, I think this is a solid sequel, and it's definitely better than the first film, so I'm going to give X2 an A. So what did y'all think of X2? Let me know in the comments below, and I want to give a big thank you to Cameron for collaborating with me. This was so awesome. And pretty soon we will talk about The Last Stand, which I'm pretty sure like a lot of X-Men fans are very, very mixed on. I'm just, but when it comes to my opinion, long story short, it's okay at best, but we'll delve more into that next time. So, guys, thank you so much as always for watching. Looking forward to doing more videos really soon. And if you want my thoughts on old or new films, of course, you know where to find me.